First tonight, this week, the World Health Organization produced a pathetic failure of a report. It was more than a whitewash. It was a piece of propaganda for the Chinese Communist Party. It gave credence to the nonsensical idea COVID-19 could have entered Wuhan in frozen food from America. Worse, the report dismissed the most likely source of the outbreak, that the disease leaked from a laboratory that is right now still genetically manipulating bat coronaviruses. And let me be clear, this research that's going on at the Wuhan Institute of Virology is designed to make the virus more lethal, more infectious, and more transmissible to humans. World Health Organization boss Dr. Tedros has been feeble in the past, it's true, but this week he showed quite unbelievable courage. He risked his entire career when he said this. He said the team also visited several laboratories in Wuhan and considered the possibility that the virus entered the human population as a result of a lab incident. He said, "I do not believe that this assessment was extensive enough. Further data and studies will need to be done to reach more robust conclusions." He said, although the team has concluded a lab leak is the least likely hypothesis, this requires further investigation, potentially with additional missions involving specialist experts, which I am ready to deploy. That's WHO boss Dr. Tedros effectively dismissing the very report that his body had handed down. It takes enormous courage for him to do that, for him to go against China. And we will see how long he lasts in that role. There's no question it's been an astronomical failure of all governments. America, Australia, New Zealand, Britain. It's been 14 months. 2.8 million people have died, 80 million been infected, and we still have not had an actual investigation. This WHO report was a PR exercise. It's embarrassing. After September 11, a national commission was created by congressional legislation to conduct an investigation. For nuclear weapons investigations, there's the International Atomic Energy Agency. But there's nothing for this virus that's taken so many lives and obliterated economies. This is fundamentally because of the left's ideological bias. It meant they refused to accept a leak from a Chinese laboratory might have been the source of the outbreak. Why are scientists, the media, and politicians so ready to believe China's claims that the virus didn't come from a lab, especially given the history? And let's look at that history. China covered up SARS in 2003. China then covered up COVID-19, destroying virus samples, arresting and disappearing whistleblowers, shaming and punishing doctors who tried to sound the alarm about a new virus. Chinese authorities then directly lied about the virus being infectious and complained it was racist to implement travel bans. By the way, Joe Biden backed this view. He sent a tweet on the day the travel ban was announced by Trump that it was racist, or that he was racist. And let's go back even further. During the Great Leap Forward, the communist rulers deliberately starved their own people by selling the grain offshore for profit. It's estimated that 47 million and as many as 55 million men, women, and children perished, mostly starving to death at the hands of Mao Zedong. And then you hear Western scientists say, oh no, the virus couldn't have come from a laboratory because the Chinese scientists told us it didn't. Remember, these scientists were accompanied and watched by minders in the Chinese Foreign Ministry the entire time they spoke to the WHO so-called investigators. So for us to dismiss this mounting circumstantial evidence around the Wuhan lab is naive, ignorant, and shows an extreme lack of understanding about the nature of the Chinese Communist Party and also of Xi Jinping and his quest for lifelong power. The former head of the Center for Disease Control in the US, he didn't hold back. Robert Redfield stated outright that the virus most likely came from a Wuhan lab.
I still think the most likely etiology of this pathogen in Wuhan was from a laboratory.
It's a pretty extraordinary conversation and a little glimpse of what we revealed sort of within these couple of hours. I should point out the World Health Organization calls the lab leak theory unlikely. And Chinese officials have started increasingly pointing to a multiple origin theory, saying that this pandemic may have started in multiple places, even around the world, including U.S. military labs.
And that was CNN delivering without any question the official Chinese version. And it's actually a lie. The WHO didn't say that it was unlikely. Dr. Tedros questioned the veracity of his own report as it was being handed down. It's almost unbelievable that CNN just repeated that Chinese claim that there might be multiple origins or that it could have come from an American military lab. Robert Redfield has now faced serious backlash, by the way, after delivering his thoughts on the real source of the virus. He's even been accused of fueling hate. But he's been joined by other respected minds. When I interviewed the head investigator at the State Department, David Asher, he wasn't buying the Chinese line either.
The point of the declassified information that the Secretary Pompeo provided was that we had information that there was indeed a cluster and that they worked on COVID-19 itself or related COVID coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is almost too much of a coincidence to believe.
Suddenly, with Donald Trump out of office, mainstream media or other mainstream media outlets like CNN are starting to consider this lab leak theory, albeit with shocked faces. 60 Minutes in the US also ran a piece this week, but it was like the origins of COVID-19 for dummies. It was so basic and underwhelming. Washington Post columnist Josh Rogan wrote this weekend that the origins issue has been highly politicized, and he's right. He said, "We have no choice but to pursue all possible theories and accept whatever truth the facts lead to. This must be done in a non-political way to show Beijing and the world that we still have the ability to place public health and truth above the narratives to which we have become beholden." It is just shameful, disgraceful, and unacceptable to think that ideological bias on the part of the left has meant that so far there has been no comprehensive, no scientific investigation into the origins of this pandemic that has shattered all of our livelihoods and that has cost so many lives.